I think it was Congresswoman Luna and Joe Rogan. Very interesting. I only saw the clip, so I haven't had the chance to watch the whole podcast. But the clip in itself was very intriguing. Yeah, what did you make of it?
It's really strange because for the last few weeks I've been seeing a lot of tweets even before the podcast was out. I've been seeing quite a few people talking about interdimensional beings and how these aliens are not from outer space. So I was quite surprised when I saw Joe Rogan dropping that. I didn't watch the whole thing. I saw a few clips, and it goes hand in hand with what we have been saying. And I think this is perfect, for us to just touch on this subject. What do you think, Imran?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a couple of things I want to get everyone's take on it, especially as people join. So we're going to get Enigma on as well and Sam on as well. But the key thing, there's a couple of big questions here. Now, when it comes to Luna, she's mentioned this specific point several times. She seems to be quite fixated on this idea of interdimensional beings. Her sources, whoever they are, seem to have convinced her and confirmed that whatever's going on is related to interdimensional beings and not extraterrestrials or anything else. Now, it'll be interesting to see if someone has any insights as to where she's getting this information from, what her sources are, why she's so convinced, why she so openly is willing to, put down the table, and say it's interdimensional when, not many people, people are speaking about it, but not many people are, definitively saying, okay, it's interdimensional, it's not extraterrestrial.
Yeah.
But she's one of those individuals. Now,
No, I was just saying that I was quite surprised. I was hoping to see at least Ross Coulthard and a few other people to come out and speak, but sadly we didn't see anything on this.
Yeah, stuff's been going on with Coulthard as well. I think he dropped out of the show.
Oh, he did?
That he does. Yeah, the Need to Know show. I think he dropped out of that as well. So I'm not sure what's going on with him.
He probably got compromised or got caught for leaking too much information.
Something's going on, yeah. There's been some shifts. I saw Lou Elizondo after a long while as well.
Yes.
One of these news outlets commenting on a potential UFO video.
I know, yeah. And to me, it's more about, how a lot of what's her name, Pasulka, and a lot of people within her field have been talking about this, that there's a big possibility that these are interdimensional, right? She has, I think, even in her book, she mentioned this. And so it's nice to see. I just hope, a lot more people speak on this topic. Or maybe a lot of them already know, but they're being held back by their sources, maybe.
Yeah, potentially. Enigma's joined us. You can unmute yourself, man. You can let us know your thoughts in regards to the events that have unfolded this week.
What do you go by for your name? I just wondered. Do you go by just IREP? Is that how you say it?
Oh no, so I'm Imran. I'm joining from the IREP account today. Faruq's a bit late. But yeah, IREP, basically Islamic Research into Exotic Phenomena.
Okay, I wasn't sure what to call you.
Oh yeah, call me whatever. You can call me IREP today. It's not an issue, man. I hope things are good.
What does IREP stand for? Oh, Islamic.
Research into Exotic Phenomena.
I see. Oh, I didn't realize that. Yeah, Luna.
So Enigma, what do you think?
For context, though, she's definitely more of a Christian fundamentalist, so clearly she's going to latch on to that hypothesis. But at the same time, I respect that she's not jumping. She's being careful. She knows that she shouldn't put her own personal beliefs, but actually follow the evidence. And I think the evidence, ironically, it's leaning towards what she believes, but it's, of course, the devil's in the details, or jinns are in the details.
That's a good way of putting it. So what do you think her sources are? Do you have any clues, any thoughts on that? Like, where is she getting this information from? What makes her so confident in so proclaiming this publicly?
It's John Clapper, Lou Elizondo, Mike Mullen, Jake Barber. What's the other guy? What's his name? I should know his name. He just went on the congressional hearing. Oh my God, I'm blanking out. I know I've mentioned it on my channel. The guy who claimed that, it was the first guy who claimed the interdimensional hypothesis, blanking out his name. But yeah, those are the people that are talking to her, no doubt.
I know that's very interesting. I just forgot the name, yeah.
Yeah, Elizondo's in that list, Enigma. I didn't think Elizondo was on that. He seemed to be very sort of take more of a sort of relaxed approach to, you know, not making any definitive claims as to what these things are. He is he on that idea as well of interdimensional beings?
Oh, now he is 100%, but he has to be very careful in how he says that because if he says that publicly, a physicist is going to say, well, what the hell do you mean by that? Like, well, what do you mean interdimensional beings? Like, what does that even mean? Mm-hmm. Because the average atheist physicist is not going to comprehend that, and so they have to be. So they use vague in the military. They're going to use acronyms and vague terms like non-human intelligence. That's not a scientific term, but they're going to keep it vague, kind of like that, because they know the answer is probably not aliens, and at the same time, it's probably not, God or Allah. It's the small stuff. It's the small G gods.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. That's another question I think we need to touch upon today as well. When they say interdimensional, what do they mean? Like, what is their understanding of that? What information have they gotten? What do they know? We'll get into all of this. Faruq, how's it going, bro?
Yeah, it's all good. Yeah, it's all good, bro. We haven't had a chance to catch up properly since I got back from a trip. No. I've been away for 2 weeks almost, alhamdulillah. And today I've been a little bit unwell, so I wasn't going to come on, but I felt bad. And I haven't seen the video related to the topic we're covering today. I did see one of you guys shared it in the group, but I haven't had a chance to watch it. So I'm in the dark. I haven't had my finger on the pulse, as they say. So I'm not even up to date with the news of the last couple of weeks. So I'm in here to learn a bit more this week.
Yeah, I'm a little behind too. What video were you talking about?
There's a clip of Joe Rogan and Congresswoman Luna going around on Twitter. It's been circulating where when he asks her about what these things are, and she says that they are interdimensional beings according to her sources. Mm-hmm. I'm paraphrasing, but that's essentially what she says.
And not sure if you guys have watched it. It's been going around quite a lot, especially like these big accounts. I think even Red Pen has shared it, and it's going around. And but the thing was, I don't know if you guys noticed one thing throughout those clips that I've watched, a few of them. She seems pretty. I don't know. To me, it seems like she was a bit scared to talk about it. But I think Joe Rogan kind of pushed her, so she did mention briefly, even though it didn't really make that much sense.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum, Maximum.
How's it going?
All right, man. So I watched the clip as well. It's very interesting that people are now coming to that sort of conclusion. So I saw the clip and I was like, wow, okay. People are definitely coming to these sorts of conclusions now. So it's going to be interesting seeing how it unfolds over time. And getting into what it actually means as well. Like, what do they actually like? What is physics actually proposing at the moment?
Sorry, I already know your name now. It's David Grush.
David Grush, yes.
Grush, okay.
And
I mean, look, so you're gonna fuck?
No. All I was just saying was, it's just that you have to understand, Luna. She's one of the head of this task force, and she is working on this. So whatever her sources are, they're quite legit.
Yep.
For sources,
yeah, absolutely. And she's not the only one. I mean, if we go back and take more of a historical take on this, some of the biggest researchers have come to a very similar conclusion, whether they've called them interdimensional beings or something else. But most of them, D.W. Pasulka recently, Jacques Vallée, Gordon Crichton, and many others. And these are big names. These are heavy hitters. They're not just the regular researcher. These guys have spent decades and they take a very rigorous approach to their study. They have come to the same conclusion that these are most definitely not extraterrestrials that we're dealing with. It's something else, and they've sort of bounced around between different ideas like crypto-terrestrial or interdimensional. And again, what do these terms mean? I know, again, a lot of this has been thrown out, but I think trying to get a clearer understanding, and it's going to be hard because we don't really know what they mean. They haven't really come out and explained what they mean by interdimensional. Even Grush.
I was reading something.
Grush says the same thing.
Yeah, nah. So,
Imran,
something that's really interesting was that I was reading what Eric Weinstein's work actually today. haven't actually gone through it, but I think what he's proposing, which is actually pretty much exactly what I'm saying with what I was thinking, but we came across it. So we came across the same sort of conclusions, just independently, is that he thinks that space is, well, from what we're seeing, we only see a very small slice of actually what actually exists. And he thinks that actually what we experience is actually part of, I think, 14 dimensions is what he said. So essentially, they are extra manifolds or extra pockets of space orthogonal to our dimensions, which means independent of our dimensions, which is just another, higher dimension, that these, beings come from. So essentially, they're just in a different, sort of axis of our spatial dimension, so they can kind of click in and click out as they sort of wish. And we can get into the physics of it, but it is sort of interesting that.
Is Eric Weinstein, is he an atheist, declared atheist? I can't remember.
I'm not too, I think he's in the middle now, so I think he's not. I think he's probably agnostic, from what I've gauged. But
yeah, he seems kind of like flip floppy.
yeah,
yeah. But this raises another interesting question. Well, okay, so if they are speaking with such confidence that these are interdimensional beings, that means they must have experienced, or someone down the chain must have experienced this firsthand. They come to the conclusion, either they're being told these beings that they're experiencing, shift through dimensions in some way. To speak in such definitive terms, someone somewhere down the chain has had some very direct experiences. And this sort of reminds me of what Faruq mentioned, I think, in the last spaces that we were on, or if not the one before, that these beings that we refer to as the jinn have been, in a type of partnership with certain aspects of the elite. So Faruq, I don't know if you can speak, bro. I know you're not well, but maybe you want to give us a bit of a refresher on that specific point.
Sure, no problem, inshallah. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. So, going off what you were just discussing, I was listening, and what always comes to mind for me personally is our own perspective as human beings, the lives we live, the interactions we have amongst ourselves, and the interactions we have with the animal world and the microbial world. And then you're discussing physics now, and that's very much based in the atomic world. These are all interactions we have consciously with other dimensions, and that's a loose term, by the way. Like I'm not using it as a sort of mathematical term, as in a dimension per se. But the animal kingdom, specifically bugs and things like that, constantly getting trampled on and destroyed by human beings, torn down. We tear down entire forests, destroying the ecosystem there, and that does extend to the microbial biological system, that a lot of these very sensitive microbiomes, like in, I don't know, let's say South America, they have a very rich biodiverse, what's the right word, like biome, if you like. And our interaction and our interference in those places causes upheaval. One of the main things that destroyed, is particularly again talking about Southern America, was bringing the flu, our microbiotic organism, flu virus, to the Southern Americas, and it destroyed all those people because we had, got used to it. The tempered way that our bodies had got used to flu, we still got sick, but to an uninitiated and unprepared body, it killed millions and millions of people. What I'm trying to say is that all the time we are ourselves interacting with and affecting other dimensions, and I think that the more we sort of look at the world in that way, of these layers of dimensions that we interact with, I think that it just makes more sense to people on the inside that to describe these beings as interdimensionals. in the same way that we affect these other dimensions, this thing is doing the same to us. And it's not a stretch of the imagination. It's also not as crazy as it first sounds. Like, if you read the name of this room, right, interdimensional beings, it sounds so bizarre, and people are not used to using that terminology and understanding it in the way that we are interdimensional beings. And once they get over that sort of that initial hurdle, I think it does, number one, best describe what's happening, or what's understood, shall I say, not happening, what's understood by people who are interacting with these beings. And this goes to what you just asked me, Imran, regarding the interdimensional beings, as we call the jinn or fairies, whatever you want to call them. I think it's important to note that the name isn't as relevant as the idea of what they are, if that makes sense. What is purported by Islamic sources, a good portion of that can be found in other, tales and mythologies around the world. So it's just Islam, I think, is just a little bit more comprehensive, hence, and we're Muslims, so hence we use that term. But using that term, interdimensional, for the jinn, because that's effectively what they are from our perspective, they, knowing how they have been exposed, I like to use that word, exposed in the Quran to that relationship between groups of human beings and the jinn, is where I think this interdimensional hypothesis is coming from. There are, and I'm going to say this without doubt, there are groups of people, and this has been alluded to by Tim Taylor as well. There are groups of people in what you would call the intelligence or other areas, I'd say, and also alluded to by Matt Brown, who are in control of the data, the information that we receive as a general public, and they are the ones who are in contact with the interdimensionals, and that's how they view them, I think, because the way we, like I said, we step on bugs, we trample over things, we carry diseases, and we spread them to other people, and sometimes we don't view that as an interdimensional interference, but it is. And if you work in the biotech sector, you are an interdimensional being affecting and manipulating another life form. And if you are a physicist, you are even though you wouldn't class it as a life form, but you are interfering with and manipulating another dimension. So with that, I don't know what is Maximum gone? Oh, there you are, bro. Sorry, I thought I saw someone leave. Yeah. No, it's with what was I saying? So yeah, with that, with these layers of understanding we have in this room now, yeah, right. So we're aware of it. I think that the guys on the inside are too aware of it, and that's how they view it. That they see them, other beings, as interdimensionals like we are, and it's not as crazy as it first sounds. And I think that's why it makes more sense as well, because if you try to bend in anything other than interdimensional, like say an alien or something a little more exotic, like I don't know, like a ghost, for example. Yeah, there leads a lot of questions. What is a ghost? Where does it come from? How does it leave the body? We can't understand these things because there is no real evidence to suggest that that's what this thing is. That it's the soul of a human being floating around, or that it's from another planet visiting here, because it just doesn't. It doesn't carry itself like that. It carries itself something to it. So the guys on the inside see it for what it is and the way it phases in. And in reality, that's how we do. We kind of phase in and manipulate other. So yeah, I don't know if I'm waffling on and keep repeating myself, but
we get you.
Yeah.
We get you. So I know what you're saying.
Like in the Pentagon paper that the mega, they clearly were using technology, and the reason is because you have separation of church and state. So the Pentagon's like, okay, we know that these might actually be spirits, but we can't use that word because of the Constitution, so we have to come up with a different terminology, so they call it interdimensional. Or they might call it non-human intelligence. These vague terms are trying to kind of be nebulous intentionally because it's a legal thing. So they're legally trying to be careful because they don't want people, people trying to sue the government, say, oh, you're being crazy. How can we trust our own government if they're trying to religious terminology? They understand the scientific community is going to react very badly if they use terms like that. So they're trying to be gentle by using more vague terms and see, Big Brother is going to hold your hand a little bit, but he wants you to figure it out.
I think, in essence, and I see you there, Ophelia. Nice to see you back in the room. We'll bring you up in a sec. I think that I think interdimensional, yeah, it kind of is vague, but it's also it definitely points an arrow. I don't I know the word NHI is definitely vague in non-human intelligence, but I think taking it to that next step, describing it as an interdimensional, and having that as like sort of the buzzword behind the scenes, I think that does definitely lead us in the right direction.
I agree. I would say that is very accurate because what it describes is that a sort of relational, definitely a one-way sort of relational imposition from a spatial aspect sort of on us, where they see us from a place where we don't see them. We're actually technically, from a dimensional sense, if we're talking about in terms of space, we're actually the ones that are porous, I suppose, or I suppose less real, ethereal. Ethereal, because wait 1 second.
No danger. Ophelia, I'm going to bring her up if that's all right, Imran. Nice to see you back. How are things with you?
They've been pretty good. How are you guys been?
I went on holiday and now I'm not well, so.
Oh no.
Sick.
Oh no.
Yeah, how are you, Ophelia?
I'm doing pretty good. I was gonna add on to the interdimensional term. So just to give an idea of my background for people who don't know, my dad owned the Archuleta Mesa in the south of Budding Ranches, which is what everybody calls the Dulce Basin UFO lore. I'm an experiencer. My dad was CIA, Raytheon, and all kinds of other stuff. I've heard these terms, but a little bit different from the time that I was very little. To give you an idea of how close my dad was to higher ups in the CIA. I looked on his computer as a kid and saw a picture of General Petraeus drinking tea in Damascus that my father took with his camera. General Petraeus is the head of the CIA. This would have been 2008. And my dad was diagnosed with cancer at the time and went over there to still do some work. So that's just a little bit of like my background. But that Dulce Base story, well, that was my dad's project. And what he described when I asked him what that base was, what Dulce Base is, and he owned it from 99 to 2013. He told me that it's demons. He was government, but he also used the word, not interdimensional. The word used in programs was pan-dimensional, not interdimensional. He told me they are pan-dimensional beings, means goes across the whole spectrum of dimensions, because we don't just have one, and it's not inter, it's pan, because they could go across all dimensions, so pan-dimensional.
Sorry to interrupt, Ophelia. I just want to I think it's a wonderful way to describe them, pan-dimensional. That is effectively what our theory is. We haven't used that terminology, but the jinn, they're not restricted to a particular dimension, or that they kind of like you remember Punch and Judy, where you like operate effectively outside of the realm like we do with microbiology. No, the jinn can literally enter into the microbiotic world and beyond. So it's a very cool term your Pupsy used there.
Yeah, Faruq, can I just make one?
Well, yeah.
It's a brilliant.
So it just reminds me of pan and trans. Trans medium, pan medium, right? It's almost as you could also use that term, kind of like a pan medium or trans medium, that they can go between many different elements and dimensions and things. But for me, what was significant was that he described it as both, and he had a real problem with people wanting it to be either scientific or spiritual. He said, that pendulum keeps swinging one way or the other. He's like, but we need to understand that these are pan-dimensional beings, and many of them are what we know of as like demons in terms of that dulce property.
Sure. Yeah.
The dulce stuff, right? So yeah.
Yeah. So
that is fascinating information.
So
You do have to keep in mind that jinns, according to what I've learned from my child, like merciful servant, that jinns or angels, they do take up time and space when they manifest around us. For example, when I had a poltergeist experience at Iowa State University, it was very clear that it was inhabiting this wooden balsa ball used for modeling class, and it was actually literally teleporting it from point A to point B. And my Muslim friend was pretty shocked. He's like blaming it on me. But all this happened in a space. And it's very clear that even in ancient Japan and Shintoism, that spirits do take up a space within time. So they're not the all-powerful cosmic, Allah or God. They are limited in their manifestation forms.
And Enigma, just
that is a very that's a very important point, brilliant point, because I think it sort of differentiates between the creator being and other created beings who may have certain faculties and abilities that they've been given that they use. However, they are not the ultimate being. They're not, because they have limitations. And I think a lot of, when it comes to jinn or whatever you refer to them as, there's also, if we refer to them as pan-dimensional beings, but also they have the ability to state change. So they can take on different forms. So assuming that they are plasma-based life form, which me and Faruq are currently of the opinion, then, that's a state of matter. If they one day materialize into our visible realm, into a form or a person or an animal or whatever the case is, there's most likely a state change that's taking place. They're going from a plasma type of state to a material type of state, hence making them susceptible and limited and dependent when they're in that state as well. Anyway, I think Maximum had to say something, and then we'll go back to
the way it works is that there's dimensions, and then there's nested dimensions within those major dimensions. So you imagine you have the 3-dimension. It's not just the 3 dimensions, it's a 3-dimensional band. So when you go up in those dimensions, you gain a extra degree of orthogonal freedom, independent of just 3 separate dimensions. So when you say pan-dimensional, it kind of describes this nested fractal topology that we see in space. This is just physics. And so when we say pan-dimensional, I suppose I get what you're hinting at. These beings, they don't have restricted access to the 4th dimension, the 5th dimension, the 6th dimension. They are on Earth. So what it seems to me is that they have access to a part of the 3rd dimension that we don't necessarily have access to. I think that's the crux. Also, as well, on top of that, because they're plasma, they can shift their state. So they can go. So if you imagine it like a sort of a vertical axis, and then we have a horizontal axis, they can shift into the different frequencies within a horizontal axis. So they can experience the more ethereal, spiritual plane, the more physical plane within the 3-dimensional band. And then, we don't know, like God knows what else is, at the same level of us that we can't necessarily even conceptualize. We just don't have the technology to do it. Just going off what I think Faruq even mentioned, that the jinn used to go and listen to the angels. That's part of, I think, Islamic eschatology as Muslims. So that, to me, from what I understand, is just the jinn listening to the edge, like going up to almost the edge of the 4-dimensional band and listening to what gaining some form of listening to what's happening in the 4th dimension. In so much that they're close to being true, orthogonally independent from the 3rd dimension, but not quite so. So they're locked in the 3rd dimension, but just they have a lot more freedom than us, is basically what I'm trying to say. So just keep it that simple.
Yeah, these are some interesting points, and I think also sort of touches upon the idea that the notion of jinn, generally speaking, within the Muslim mind and the sort of non-Muslim mind, is that these are, when you think of jinn, you think of, okay, these are spirits, You know, when you think of demons, people think spirits, you know, spiritual, supernatural. And I think it's important to sort of really bridge the gap here, that if we really start to study the jinn and the way they function and the way they function within these dimensions and shift states, you can say an element of them you can refer to as spiritual or supernatural, but they are very real and natural in a sense as well. You know, so Faruq, you got your hand, Enigma, you got your hand up. Let's go to Enigma and then back to you, Faruq, bro, if that's okay.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you that even in the Catholic tradition, it seems very clear that their default state is an aura of energy, and each entity does take on the space and time aura, and they have certain level of willpower. In the sense, like, you know, Dragon Ball Z, Super Saiyan 1, Super Saiyan 2. So not all the demons are equal in their power, or relative to an angel or higher level demonic beings. So their power manifestations are limited to whatever Allah restricts them to. So when, for example, the case over at in Mexico, or was in Texas on the border, when the border agent was talking to Ross Coulter on News Nation, they presented the video. When I looked at that video, I noticed the attributes are very similar to the so-called jellyfish video over Iraq, in that the object was very abstract and blobular, but the agent said that the object did not register as hot. He said it actually registered as very cold, and that's what got them a little concerned. Like, well, how is it so cold, but it's moving, and it's very blobular? He said it seemed to have a morphing ability. So when we say they're plasma, there might be something like cold plasma that we're not totally aware of, in the sense that somehow they can cool down matter, but it almost can morph into something like plasma. So when Gary Nolan presented the metallic elements, he said that in some of his cases, it looked like the metal was being heated up, like microwaved, and it was being fused together randomly. So he's saying, well, I wouldn't call this really technology because it's just a slag of metal. What can I do with nothing? But he said the isotope ratios were very odd, that there's no way this could be produced naturally. So that's why he used the word artificial, or it could be a technological origin. He's just trying to say that it's definitely not something you would find in nature.
Yeah, no, brilliant points. We'll go to Faruq in a second, and then we're gonna go to Maximum. I want Ophelia to come back. I have a few questions for her. I think it would be good to get her take on certain things. But just to mention on that, bounce off what Enigma said quickly. It reminded me of a narration of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, when he said that the jinn are of three kinds. Now, it's not restricted to necessarily three types, but highlighting that there are different kinds. So different types of jinn may have different abilities and capacities. Now, according to that narration, there are those that fly through the sky, those that take on different forms of animals, and those that come and go. So this is highlighting at least some categories of jinn and certain abilities each one of these categories have. So it does seem to be the case that when it comes to the jinn, you can say a different species of jinn may have, or a species of jinn may have a specific ability or power that's been assigned to it, which another one doesn't, and another one will have a different type of ability or power. Hence, we see so many different manifestations of the exotic or the paranormal. Possibly is due to different types of jinn being behind these different experiences. But anyway, let's go to Faruq, and then we'll come back to Maximum.
Yeah, I wanted to continue briefly, and because it's a conversation, anyone can jump up and share their thoughts and ideas and challenge and whatever else, because what we want to do in these spaces is just let everyone have their view. Obviously, we're Muslims, we talk about the knowledge we have, but if anyone's in here wants to share what they think or challenge, like I said, please jump up and do so. But I wanted to carry on with what you were talking about, Imran, just briefly, about bridging that gap between what people understand as a spiritual demonic entity and what they really are. And what they really are similar to us. They have lives, they have children, they love, they hate, they get bored, they trick, as the tricks that's them pranking people. They're normal in their own sense of normality, and they have many children. There's lots of reports from the history of Islam. Many of the scholars mention that they. Sorry.
What do you mean by that? Because if their default state is ethereal, then how can they don't reproduce sexually unless they take on?
Yeah. Yeah, they do. They have children. They copulate and procreate. Because we live in this world and we see what we see as regard to what reproduction is. We can't limit that to be the only way reproduction occurs. And
I mean,
as far as I'm aware,
cells reproduce in a different way, although they are biological like us, but they still have a different mode of reproduction. So I assume a different state being, a plasma state being, may have its own modality of reproduction, which we're not aware of.
For example, as well, like different organisms and different, even technological sort of things we have communicate in a different way. They don't necessarily talk to each other, but they talk to each other, if that makes sense. So there's some similarities in reproduction, not necessarily in the means of or the way somebody does reproduce. So, yeah, just to make that pretty clear.
Sorry.
yeah, I'll just that's fine. Go on, Nick, Malcolm.
I was just gonna say that's where Catholics would push back against that, because even in ancient Chinese lore, they didn't really believe that the gods reproduce. It's more like a poetic sense to represent the kings on earth or the rulers on earth. But they do believe that these gods are born from the ancestors, in the sense that they're dead human souls that have become small g gods or jinns, and they don't. Their true nature is purely ethereal now. So they can split their aura in different ways, but the aura is still, for example, it's hard to describe this. The idea of identity isn't consistent in the realm of the supernatural, because there's one aura. The aura can split its aura into, let's say, putting it into your coffee cup, and then it puts another part of its aura into a book in your house, and it moves them simultaneously in different patterns. So you might think it's two separate jinns, but in reality, it's one jinn, but splitting its aura. So that in reproduction.
So
but it's really
thinking about it in kind of the wrong way. The reason why I say that is because what would seem like it's in two different places at once is just literally it operating from a different point, spatially dimensionally. So, for example, if you imagine two-dimensional, beings, so we're looking at a piece of paper, we have two hands. We could put, so we can interact with the two-dimensional being on this sort of flat land. We could put our hands on two different points in space at the same time, and it would think that, how the heck is it doing it? How's it being able to be at two different coordinates at the same time? It's literally just dimensional advantage. And so, I don't see it as necessarily a contradiction. I think what it is like I said, like they have a focused, they hold up a space at a time. They can't split that space in time, but it appears that they can do that when they interact with our spatial dimension.
Yeah, I'd go as well, Maximum, to say that even the microbiotic world would think that some of what we do to them, especially when we extract blood, take a sample of blood, let's say from the toe, and we very quickly put that blood back in, let's say the shoulder, to the from the perspective of the microbiology we extract from there and place there, they've traveled like a vast distance instantaneously. It would be bizarre to them and they wouldn't be able to. But going back to what I was mentioning, just not humanizing the jinn, but them being living, what our ideas.
Assalamu alaikum, guys. Faruq, hope you're well. Sami, hope you're well too. I'm gonna give you, Faruq, I'm gonna make you co-host, bro.
Hey, assalamu alaikum. Imran, are you on?
Yeah, I'm on, bro. I'm on. How's things going?
Just busy, man. Just at work right now.
Head.
Be prepared.
Being, so we're looking at a piece of paper. We have two hands. We could put, so we can interact with the two-dimensional being on this sort of flat land. We could put our hands on two different points in space at the same time, and it would think that, how the heck is it doing it? How's it being able to be at two different coordinates at the same time? It's literally just dimensional advantage. And so, I don't see it as necessarily a contradiction. I think what it is like I said, like they have a focused, they hold up a space at a time. They can't split that space in time, but it appears that they can do that when they interact with our spatial dimension.
Yeah, I'd go as well, Maximum, to say that even the microbiotic world would think that some of what we do to them, especially when we extract blood, take a sample of blood, let's say from the toe, and we very quickly put that blood back in, let's say the shoulder, to the from the perspective of the microbiology we extract from there and place there, they've traveled like a vast distance instantaneously. It would be bizarre to them and they wouldn't be able to. But going back to what I was mentioning, just not humanizing the jinn, but giving the perspective of them being living there, because what our ideas over the centuries have been born from, like you mentioned, what Catholicism said, or what some of the Far Eastern traditions have about what gods are, or the little gods, little g gods as you called them. These are things that we have generally extracted from experience. So these mythologies and these understandings are extracted from experience and from, let's say, from anecdotal. Especially even now, look at how ufology is different and how people interpret it differently based on the experiences they have, and that actually creates a limitation from the perspective of. I had an experience, and in that experience, I saw this bubble of fire, and coming off that bubble of fire was a line of fire, like a rope. And almost like do you remember the Ghostbuster proton pack? Yeah, it had like the beam of fire going from the big bubble of fire up to a small, I'd say similar to a beach ball sized thing of a really intense ball of fire. And inside the big bubble, I saw the being, and I saw its head and its shoulders, but I didn't see anything beyond the torso. Like I didn't see any legs, and it had little stumpy arms. Now, if I was to restrict that thing that I saw to the phenomenon itself and say that's what it is, it would be wildly incorrect, because it doesn't take into consideration everyone else's experiences with them. And then, as the jinn hypothesis covers, it doesn't go into like just limiting my experience, not having knowledge that I do. I wouldn't be able to place spiritual or even you could say like angelic experiences. This wouldn't be covered in that, because this thing doesn't at all look anything like or come across anything like something that people would think were angelic. So it would be very restrictive just to base it on these anecdotal mythological stories, and that's what I think a lot of other cultures have done. Even my own Celtic background, we have many stories about the gentry folk, they called them. It was a blue-skinned people who used to live up on the mountains, and they based that on their own experiences. So going back to what I was discussing from the jinn hypothesis has a different origin than just an experience of a person. It wasn't like the prophets had experiences and tried to explain them to people. Prophets are completely different. They were given a task, generally a message to deliver to the people. That message would contain some sort of law to follow or ideas to follow, as well as a warning of a day that's coming where justice will be brought to the evildoers. So one should repent for the bad things they've done and try to live a righteous life, etc. And as well as give information, whether that be related in terms of a miracle to show proof that this person was from God, or whether they were given information that was miraculous, revealing information from the unseen that couldn't possibly be known by a human and turning out to be accurate. And that's where the jinn hypothesis comes from. It comes from our perspective, and you can challenge us on that, by the way. But the jinn, what we know about them, comes from what we call revelation. So God saw fit to tell us incredibly detailed information about another creature that lives beside us in a different place where they can see us and we can't see them. And he gave so much detail about these things and what they do and how they affect us and the type of relationships they build with certain people among humanity and what they do to those people and what they have those people do to the rest of us. And the reason all of that information was given to us is so that we can be prepared for events like this. And so that's why I think that knowing that they procreate and that they have children, and as you mentioned, Imran, but there are, and I'm nearly finished, guys. I see your hands up, Jonathan. We're going to go to you next, bud. But just knowing that you mentioned, Imran, that some fly, some come and go, and those that change in forms into animals. That's as normal to them as it is to see a ginger-haired white guy with blue eyes, as well as a big, handsome, I'm just guessing by your picture, Maxima, that you're, from African descent. Yeah. And then, going to, let's say, one of these, dwarf people with dwarfism. We're all the same creature. We're all human beings, but we have wild differences. Some of us are very intelligent, very good at math, not to be stereotypical here, but you go Far East, Japan, China, India, Pakistan, people there, very good at maths, very good at certain things like that. You could say that some people are very good, especially when it comes to track and field events. You'll see a lot of people, long distance running. There's a lot of countries that constantly win long distance running, so on and so forth. So physiologically, psychologically, our intelligence and our capabilities within our bodies are different, but yet we're all human beings. And I think that just because the differences are maybe much more stranger and wild compared to what we understand, but among the jinn, that's just normal. So hopefully I presented a good little case there. I will go to you, Imran, and you can hand it over to Jonathan.
Brilliant point. I think this is also an interesting discussion. I mean, it's an offshoot, but maybe we can get back to it. It's more of an epistemological discussion of the source of information. And obviously this is a very difficult area anyway. We're talking about these elusive beings, right? And experience is going to have a big role in this as well. Where if the information is coming from the experience of the being, from the being itself, like what it tells you, can it be trusted, knowing its deceptive nature? So there's big questions we can discuss. I guess get to, but let's go to Jonathan quickly, and then we'll go back to Enigma.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. Yeah.
Okay, just making sure I'm in my car. There are three things I'll just super fast address. So, Ophelia mentioned, demons being at Dulce Base. I know very little about ufology, but correct me if I'm wrong. I've heard that there's, rumor that there was an alien base there, and if that's the case, and maybe she could clarify, if that's the case, and they're housing demons, what the heck is the U.S. government doing housing demons? So that's just my question, and maybe I'm incorrect with that information. So I'd like to hear what she has to say with that. Secondly, I do really like these spaces, and as I've grown into myself, I'm finding myself more. I don't know. There's something that's happened to me with my experiences where I'm starting to listen to religious, ideas more than I've ever before. I don't know if you guys heard, but I was compelled to learn the Our Father in Aramaic when I was having my experiences. And I'm starting to believe, and everything I'm saying right now is solely opinion and speculation based on my experiences. I do not believe that I am the arbiter of anything, and I know next to nothing about this, and it's just speculation. So what I'm seeing in this society, this world we're living in, the things that are going on in this world, I'm starting to believe that there's two different gods, and maybe one we could call Satan or Lucifer. I don't know what the Quran says about it, but it seems to me that Yahweh is not the same God that falls under Jesus and Muhammad's God. I just don't believe it. I'm seeing what I'm seeing with my own eyes, and I think there's two opposing gods, the light and the dark, and I believe that the God of Jesus and the God of Muhammad is the same, and it's the God of light. And furthermore, with my experiences, and so this is my only gripe when I listen to the Muslim community talk about the jinn. My one and only gripe is this, is that I hear you guys talk about the demons almost entirely, not entirely, but almost entirely, whereas in my experiences, again, this is my speculation, there's the other side of the spirit world, and that's, Christians will call them angels. I don't know what the Muslim community will call them, but I know, I don't want to say I know, I feel inside there are forces of good are in these parallel realms. I don't know if I like the term dimensions, because are we talking about like fifth dimension tesseract? I don't know. It's maybe just just like someone was mentioning that God, Allah was, describing these beings that can see us, but we can't see them in this very, parallel universe, let's say. I believe that. That's definitely what I believe. But I kind of feel sad when I hear us talk only about the demons, when I know for sure there's been a battle. Again, I don't want to say I know. I feel inside this intuitive feeling there's been this battle of good forces versus evil forces in this realm that we cannot see. And we're being some of us are influenced by the dark, some of us are influenced by the light. And that's basically it. I'm curious about the origin of the Dulce base, if she could elaborate that, like, were they housing demons, if that's what it is? Or, if anyone in this space wants to respond to anything I said, I'd love to hear any thoughts.
Yeah,
Is it okay if I respond to him?
Yes, we're going to go. Yes, please.
Thank you. So I'm fairly convinced my dad was connected to whatever they call the Collins elite. He didn't own that mesa until after the Phil Schneider incident happened, and I think that was 96. He was good friends with Arthur Exxon, who showed up to my childhood home, which was right next to the executive VP of Lockheed in a compound. So he lived right next to our next door neighbor in a closed compound where you had to call in a gate, was the exec VP of Lockheed. So what I think was going on here was the Dulce base, like I was told by my brother, was not an alien multi-level government thing. This is a nexus point where a very dark energy that the Native Americans called a skinwalker exists. And so if you read like Skinwalkers at the Pentagon, hunt for the skinwalker. What Dulce was looked at for early on was skinwalkers, which is essentially a demon. It's all the same black magic rituals to bring them in that you'd use to bring in a demon. So what happened was, and I'll get back to Arthur Exxon in a minute, George Knapp talks about how operatives were sent in to do this. He did it himself. You're supposed to dig up the earth where these entities supposedly exist. If you start messing with the earth with like bulldozers, developing things, well, then you start getting these demons who mess with you and your family states away. And I experienced the Skinwalker demon because of my dad's presence on that project, trying to figure out what was there. Now, there were people who are Native Americans at Dulce who have been experiencing abductions for a long time, very long time. Crafts and things that I think are demons taking them from their homes and doing things to them. There are certain people in the government who don't want to touch the spiritual aspect of this, and they want to think it's demons or aliens. There's other people who have found through a lot of research that these things respond to all the same occult, black magic, ritualistic stuff that we see all over the world. So, in short, in the end, and my dad had some experiences himself early on in his career that I could talk about later. It's the same thing that came from me. In the end, my father practiced exorcisms and deliverance ministry. That's what his career in the CIA ended as. And he would tell me about how when they were exorcising demons out of some people, their faces would shift into a cat or like a animal, and then shift back into a person, all kinds of strange stuff like that. So yeah, I hope that answered that.
So that's again fascinating. I mean, it would be really good to get you on. Maybe we could do it next week to really just get you on and focus on your story. I think that would be very powerful, and your experiences and your father's take on what's going on. We definitely need to do justice to that. I don't think we're going to be able to do it in this space, but nevertheless, keep chiming in. It's fascinating stuff. Jonathan, we're going to go to Faruq, but Faruq, before we go to you, bro, just to highlight a couple of things. Firstly, thank you, Jonathan, for coming on. Secondly, you're right in the sense that we are only, talking about jinns a lot. And the reason, just to give you some context to that, is because we're talking about the whole UFO phenomenon, and what's behind it, we believe, is the jinn. Hence, we focus on that, and we've been talking about that a lot. But on other spaces, we have spoken about the angels and other beings, and angels are a part of Islam as well. Beings created by God, which I'm sure Faruq's going to touch upon and go into a bit more detail. And the other thing is the only slight point I will make on the way we understand the dynamic between God or Allah and these demonic beings, that they're not on the same level or plane. God is the creator. There is only one creator, and he created everything else, which includes all of the other beings, which include the jinn or the demonic beings. So then it's not the case that you have the demonic God head and then the positive God. We don't have that type of, because even intuitively and philosophically, if you think about that, it doesn't make sense, because naturally when we think about the concept of God, what's invoked within our minds is a high being, the creator of everything, the one that's all powerful, able to do all things, etc. Now, as soon as you say there's more than one God, that reduces that notion within our minds, because there's a sense of dependency comes into play, a sense of weakness comes into play, because one is always overpowering the other, etc. So even philosophically, it doesn't make sense. But anyway, I'm not going to go into too much detail. I know Faruq's probably got a lot to say on this. Faruq, over to you, and then we'll go back to Enigma. Enigma, I know you've been patiently waiting with your hand up, but we'll go straight to you after Faruq.
Sweet. That's exactly what I wanted to mention to Jonathan. I think you are right. There isn't enough said. Now, I would just want to clarify for yourself, Jonathan, and for everyone else, that like human beings, you have people who are good people, who are God-fearing. By the way, that's not mutually exclusive. There's someone who's can only be good if they're God-fearing, but people who do good actions and do good things and have a consciousness, if you like, of how they're treating other people and care and so on and so forth. Most humans have these capabilities, and we also have the capability to be bad and to be evil, and we're of different ways. That's how we are. And the jinn are no different. So you will, Jonathan, definitely have some, either read some stories, or maybe even yourself or other people will tell you of experiences they've had, of good experiences. One famous one is the school in, I always forget the name of it, the aerial school, that's it.
Zimbabwe.
In Zimbabwe. Thank you very much, brother. In Zimbabwe, where the creatures were warning the youth and saying, "Look, you got to change your ways. You're ruining this planet." And it does show that there is some level of consciousness of the creatures as to how we're treating the planet and trying to advise us to do good, and so on and so forth. And there, like I was saying, there's a spectrum among humanity, and there's a spectrum amongst the jinn, right? So it doesn't mean that just because something good is being said or mentioned that is angelic in nature. And this is where I think Islam is different than the Catholics or the Christian brothers, in that we have the jinn are a completely different creation from the angels, as we call them, the malaika. The angels, they are not only a different being, but completely made of a different substance. So the jinn, as we've mentioned here, are a plasma, fire-based creature. It's made from a smokeless or a scorching fire. I think it's probably more accurate. Yes, they are made from the essence of a fire, and they are different than the angels, who are made from a light. And the angels do not become jinn. They can't become rebellious and anger their Lord, and he lose his favor, and they get kicked out from the position they are. They're a completely different creation. And the angels definitely manage the jinn more than they manage the human being. What do I mean by that? In the Quran, it mentions that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will deal with the jinn using the angels. In essence, saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will have the angels send fire towards the jinn. That sounds odd. Why would you use fire? But this is what it mentions. And some people will see these events in the sky and think that it's like a meteorite, but it's not. Sometimes these fireballs you see are not meteorites, but they're you might even think it's a UFO, a flaming ball of fire flying through the sky and attacking. And this is why you have some anecdotal evidence from people on the inside saying that they've seen fighting going on. So it could be fighting amongst jinn, or it could be an angel attacking a rebellious jinn, because the jinn, because of their capabilities, they could definitely cause a lot of corruption. And they do anyway, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't allow them to go beyond the scope. So there is some control mechanism from Allah, from God, by sending his angels to dutifully protect the planet from certain things. And that's why, and we don't really, like, we've never really talked about this, Jonathan, in public, because there's a level of speculation, but also I'm going to share something that happened on my trip. I went on holiday and I was filming out the window and I saw what looked like a Tic Tac. Yeah. And immediately my mind told me that you should film this and share it as a Tic Tac. And then I thought, but what if it's not? And I realized, I caught myself that quite often when you're in this topic, or when you've had experiences, you are encouraged by the creature to observe the sky more. And therefore, like, in your mind, it's like, look up. And you look up and you see something and you immediately think you've seen something. And it sometimes can be wrong. You've not seen anything, but the jinn or the shayateen or the companion or the qareen, whatever it is that's incessantly telling you to look around, is actually doing it to put you on that edge. And you end up sharing things that are innocuous. There's nothing. But you think that it was something. And that made me catch myself. And I thought, okay, this is part of it. They tend to make you on edge and observe a lot of things and see a lot of things. And you think you're having more experiences than you are. But yet the thought, the attacking thought in your mind to look and to see and to interpret as a phenomena is part of the phenomena. And it's not just seeing something in the sky is amazing, but actually recognizing that room, that private room inside your mind, is being broadcast to from outside. And once you understand that, you like, it's made me realize a lot, understanding that area of our own personal space inside ourselves, that's generally we think we're the only ones who are, like the area where we think, that is under attack by these beings as well. Now, why I wanted to mention that, Jonathan, is because that if we don't have let's say a yardstick by which to measure experiences, i.e. revelation from God as an example, then we can be misled. And that is where having a religious perspective and something from revelation from God, who's guiding us on these matters, i.e. he's revealed information about the jinn so we can understand who they are, what they're doing, and therefore have that way of measuring what's going on in the world. It allows us to interpret things correctly rather than assuming that something is angelic or not angelic. And that's why I mentioned where we've differed from Christianity, is because there is no, shall I say, there is no clear, concise evidence or statement from one of the prophets in the biblical sources that state that it's a fallen angel. Okay, and even if it did, it wouldn't necessitate that being a truthful statement, because a lot of the Bible is inspired into men, by God. That's what they say. And that's why you have, I don't want to make this topic about, differences between Christianity and Islam, but if you look at how these discussions go, generally people on the other side, they're attacking Christianity because the people who wrote down a lot of the things wrote them down much later on. Yeah. Now, I don't want to, again, like, I'm not that interested in making it like a Christian versus thing, but just to give you our perspective, understanding how these creatures work and the nature of how they manipulate us, even like in this topic of UFOs and so on and so forth, is helpful to understand that so that you can protect yourself. Not just you, Jonathan, but everybody in this room. Having a protection and by being through awareness and through knowledge helps. Knowing that the angels are there and they have a duty to fulfill. Like our belief is that they move the clouds. We know, according to our own understanding, angels talk to one another. They discuss things. They're given tasks to do, and they fulfill those tasks by God. And they go around, and there's some travel with you everywhere you go. I know a lot of you are not going to understand that. From our belief, angels are with human beings literally all the time. Jinn are not with us all the time. The Qareen is not with us permanently, but the angels are. So the angels are constantly with us, and the angels also affect our consciousness. The Prophet, peace be upon him, he said that every son of Adam has two companions. One companion from the devils or from the jinn, and one companion from the angels. And each one has a touch. That's the word used, but really it means an influence on him. And he said that if you find that the influence of the devil is more, i.e. you're being influenced to do bad things, you're constantly having bad thoughts and thinking, evil, then seek refuge in God, ask God to protect you from it. And if you find that your mind is full of good thoughts, encouraging you to do good, give charity, pray, and being kind to your parents, and being hyper aware of other people and how they feel, and trying to do good, so on and so forth. If you find that's what's happening in your mind and in your consciousness, then praise Allah and thank Allah, because the angel's having more of an effect on you. And that is essentially the experience of the human being, going around with these two influences happening to us all the time. In Hollywood, they put like a devil and an angel on the side of each thing, and that's kind of how we view it. But it's not as melodramatic as that, but there is a purpose behind these two things. Hopefully I ain't gone too long, Imran. I've got a banging headache and I might be waffling.
You're good, bro. We're going to wrap up now, but let's go to Enigma and then we'll bring it to a close for today.
Can I say one thing after as well?
Yes, sure, bro.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with you guys on that, in the sense that I do think that there are angelic UAPs out there. The one case I think we need to consider is definitely the one that happened over the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem in 2011. Now, the History Channel, they didn't do their due diligence to find the fourth and the fifth video. I found it. Grump Skull is the main uploader from Palestine, and clearly in the footage that Fox News did not show the whole footage, nor did CNN. You see the white orb that comes down, and when you zoom in, you can clearly tell it's morphing, and the color is white, and then it shoots up. And then when you look at the end of the video, you notice that there are 4 or 3 red orbs blinking and moving around the space that the white thing shot up. So the color of the object might actually indicate its nature, whether it's yin or yang, as a warning to us, or as a way that God or Allah forces the angels to, say, you gotta give some clues to the humans, okay? Let's not completely deceive them. So, if you see, a dog man in Wisconsin with red eyes in your backyard, that's probably a fucking demon. Okay, and there are many cases in Michigan and Wisconsin. It's very disturbing. I've seen one footage from Detroit, a lady that looked like she was on cocaine, African-American lady, but I didn't judge her that way. I looked at her footage, and she's not some YouTuber trying to get clicks. She's just trying to share her experience, and she's paranoid. And when I saw her footage, I literally saw something that manifested a leg that looked in the shape of a werewolf's leg, and it was like hopping or skipping, and then it fizzed away or faded out. It faded in and then faded out in her footage, and she was freaked out, and she's had poltergeist experience. So something demonic was manifesting to her. But not every case I don't think is demonic, because there's a case in the UK. I presented on my channel, I forgot the name of the documentary, but the host there presented a family that experienced a white orb, and they also noted that it was very similar to the one over Jerusalem, over the Dome of the Rock there. And they said it was white, and they didn't have a sense of fear. They said they felt like they were being forced to feel a sense of love. And the old lady was trying, or the grandmother was trying to explain that she wanted to see it again. And it was weird because it was a family, it wasn't individual. Where in my case, I saw a red orb, and it was scary. Because when it shut the wind off, I mean, at first there was a gust of wind that came, and then everything went still. No crickets, nothing. And then the manifestation of the orb over the woods that was only 200 feet away, maybe 100 feet high, manifested after I put my phone away. It didn't want me to get it on video. I know it sounds like an excuse, but that's what happened. So what I experienced definitely didn't feel angelic. You can trust your instinct. Sometimes, fear is there for a reason. It's an instinct, and it's to protect you. So trust your instinct a little bit. At the same time, have some common sense. If you see something dark and a shadow-like figure inside your house, that's probably demonic.
I don't know. I think we have to be a bit more. We have to be a bit more nuanced with this, because if we presuppose that their telos is to deceive human beings, they literally just play good cop, bad cop, in which they would engineer these, beings of light, beings of, darkness, to create a false dichotomy, just to, again...
the long-term effects on your family or you or yourself. Sure, if it's causing you a divorce or something and you're losing your kids and all that, sure, for long-term effect.
What I'm trying to say is that would presuppose the telos. The telos could be, because again, from an Islamic perspective, what we're saying is that the primary reason why jinns interact with human beings is to misguide them from the meta telos of life, which is, or also the meta purpose of life, which is submission to God and doing what God says, following the divine order of things as presupposed for planned for human beings, or imposed on human beings. And so it's not necessarily such that you get given gifts. I think that's too low resolution. It's too one-dimensional, because the being given gifts is being used to distract, or to distract from the meta purpose. I don't doubt that they can't be positive jinns. Of course, I mean, jinns are neither good nor bad. They're a mixture of multiple different types of individuals, as with human beings.
Because again, these are what we inherit from our religious background, but there's a chance when we actually learn about UAPs in more detail and actually see the video evidence and learn about these specific case files, like the one in South Africa and other places, you can start to kind of come to a logical hypothesis about that encounter. For example, Stan Romanek. His case, I think, was in Australia, and people thought his footage was fake when he had this little ET thing slowly poked its head up behind the door. And when I saw the rest of his footage in his documentary, he had flashes of light, he had the dark shadows, he had the little orbs, and then he had a manifestation of an ET. When you gather all that data, the logical conclusion is that's a demonic angel or a very evil jinn. It's nothing good that happened when he was being haunted.
Yeah, but let's not forget that sometimes evil can shroud itself in the cover of good, and that's the point, is that we live in a world of dissonance, and so sometimes the surface level of what, and even down the line even, might appear to be good, but it's not necessarily good. But I'm not going to say that there aren't any good encounters between jinn that actually generally have good intentions. I'm sure they are, but I'm saying that to kind of create this dichotomy where we say, okay, well, if it's red and if it does bad things, then it's bad, and if it does good things, then it's good. Well, if it does seemingly good things that humans like, then it's necessarily good. I think that we have to inspect. Pardon?
Well, I mean, we have to judge it by its actions. Like, if it's violating your space in your house and it doesn't give a crap about your space, as Lou Elizondo said, he said, no, you make sure you protect your space, and they should not be breaking and entering in your house. He says that's a crime. So if there's a jinn in your house, it's a crime. Obviously, they don't care for our laws, but the angels should be respecting our boundaries and being gentle.
So I'll explain this to you like this, right? So in the Islamic sort of perspective, we don't even believe that jinn should be manifesting visibly to humans, or even meddling in human sort of affairs at all. And so the idea is that if you've interacted with one in any sort of way where it's been visible, it's already doing something that it's not meant to be doing. And so Muslim jinn aren't even not really meant to be meddling in human affairs, being seen by people. And so when they do get seen by people, then we do start to start thinking, okay, well, what are they doing? Especially when they're parading themselves around sort of human society and in and out. They're definitely doing it for a reason. But I'm not going to say that they aren't any good good jinns, but because they are definitely good jinns. But I think it's so nuanced, and we have to reframe these experiences around the purpose. So I think the purpose gives context to what they're trying to do and what they're doing in the first place. Lest we forget that the demons offer all sorts of great things to the people that follow them, as we know. Power, whatever it be, fame, etc., and we can't use that as the yardstick for what their intentions are, whether they're good or bad. Just simply put.
Yeah, this is an interesting discussion, guys. But we're gonna bring it to a close now. If you guys want to carry on, please do. Post the spaces. But this is a very interesting discussion as well. It's an important one because it's there's definitely good and evil, and some people have had encounters, experiences with the good, whether it's angelic or whether it's good jinn. We would say far few and less than the negative experiences with negative entities and beings, etc., which are far more prevalent. However, it does become a bit tricky to speak in definitive terms, just considering the deceptive nature of the jinn. When you bring that concept into play, that muddies the waters. So there is a very interesting discussion to be had here, because we do have examples of individuals, experiences who have almost a lifelong, experience with these beings or entities that they see as positive. However, when you really logically break it down and assess it, you see the negativity that's emerged, whether it's been immediately or over time. But again, very interesting discussion. Maybe we can pick up on these points next Friday as well. But yeah, Faruq, you want to say anything? Just take us out, bro. Close us off for today, because I'm falling asleep, man. Unless you want to carry on, Faruq, with everyone.
I think definitely we should wrap it up. But I was just saying, Enigma, it was a great discussion. What I would say is, if you are on the WhatsApp group chat, we have like a whole section for debates and discussion. So I think we can carry on over there as well.
Yeah, because I think it's a fruitful discussion, and a lot of interesting things can come out of it. So if you are on the Enigma, definitely pick it up with Maximum in the debates and discussions WhatsApp group.
But you guys on X Spaces, that's good enough for me.
Okay, perfect, man. So next Friday we'll be back on, so we can pick up on this and a few other topics. But yeah, thank you guys for coming on. I know loads of people have left as well, but Faruq, Afaq, Enigma, Maximum, Dark, Zed, Dan, Tariq, Joe, Anan, Sally, Mohammed, all of you guys, thank you for coming on, and others that I can't see on my screen. And we'll pick up with you guys, or pick up on the discussion next Friday. Have a good night. Take care, guys. Faruq, anything you want to say, bro?
I think it's out.
I think he's sleeping. He's probably gone to bed. He's tired, man. Mela, give him, cure him, and he's in fighting form next Friday, so we can pick up on this. Anyway, take care, guys. Good night.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum salam.